I just have reached the point in my career where like I will say out loud and mean it with my whole heart, there is nothing at Jellyvision that can't be improved. There is nothing about me that can't be improved. So where do we want to get started?
All right, we're in Chicago, Illinois, and we're going to be talking to tech superstar Amanda Lannert, the CEO of Jellyvision. Jellyvision is an HR tech platform that services about 25% of the Fortune 500 companies, and they essentially help employees navigate their health benefits. We talked to Amanda about her unique perspective into the CEO role and how she navigates her leadership style. Let's go talk to Amanda. All right, we're with the CEO of Jellyvision, Amanda Lannert. Amanda, thank you for being here. Are you excited?
So not, but it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
So if you could, can you tell me what Jellyvision is in your own words?
I'll do it two different ways. It's a film company turned educational software company, turned gaming company, turned digital agency, turned HR tech company. That's the history over since 1989. But I'm going to try to, instead of explaining Jellyvision, I'll paint a world for you. We live in a world where Ford spends more money per car on health insurance than steel. Starbucks spends more on health insurance than coffee beans. And yet 1 in 4 employees would rather clean a toilet or be placed on hold than shop for benefits. And so a company that was a teaching company and then a gaming company and then a digital agency that it learned how to teach and entertain and then persuade has basically put all of those skills together to get bored, worried, concerned people to understand the math around health insurance so they can make better decisions around how they choose and use their benefits.
You've been here since 2000, correct?
It feels like 1942.
But it seems like you've been a witness to those shifts. So how did it make a shift into this specific shift?
So we used to make our money on these things called CD-ROMs that held data, and we would slide them into a computer and we made games. But when the CD-ROM business died, it was a really important pivot point where Harry, our founder, had gotten freakishly successful in gaming and was like, I've never really wanted to like make games. I want to teach people. I want to reach through the screen and engage learners one-on-one. And so we said, awesome, we're going to go to where there's furrowed brow, where people are trying to do something complicated and boring, but important, and we'll talk them through it. And once we learned the world of employee benefits, it's a $1.3 trillion a year annually recurring pile of yuck. And there's really no other industry where you can take a product, name it based on its most terrifying feature, and expect it to be successful. But like our long-term retirement product's called 401k, that's what it's called. We have products called like high deductible plans. No one thought to call it the low premium plan. Like there's no respect for the consumer marketing, and so we come in and I'm like, what is it? We learn it. And then we turn around and teach it to you, only as much as you need to know to make a great decision. And our algorithms are 100% consumer-centric. And basically what we do is we simulate a conversation to basically interview you, figure out what is important to you, understand your attitudes towards risk, how you make decisions, and then match you to the benefits that are either going to help you save money or improve your access to care.
But when you're selling to your clients, your customers, you're selling to these large corporations, correct?
Yeah.
So how do they react when you're saying it's all consumer focused? Are they worried about the dollars and cents at this point?
So there is an ROI. When we can drive tax savings, we get people to invest in their 401ks or HSAs, which are of interest to employees' long-term financial well-being, employees actually reduce their payroll tax liability. Like we pay for ourselves about 6 times over the first year you have our software.
How do you do that? Can you walk me through, because I know there's a flagship product,
yes.
Would you call it? So
we have
Alex.
a platform called Alex that we license to north of 1,600, mostly large employers, to help them help their employees choose and use benefits. That's our bread and butter.
How long of a process is this with an employee at a large company that goes
It's very
through
choose your own, like a conversation. So it's based on like really complex Boolean logic, a branching structure. We have people who can get in and out in 2.5 minutes, and we have people who spend more than 17 minutes talking to Alex. So it's where are you? What do you need from the experience? Just like what would you need if you picked up the phone and called someone and said, hey, what's right for me? Do you just want to get to the answer, or do you want to be like, why?
Let's focus on you.
Okay.
Your journey as CEO here and president prior to that, right?
Yep.
So I'm interested how you've navigated all this change as one of the leaders of the company and then ultimately as the CEO of the company. How have you navigated that change?
Accidentally. I grew up in a house that really prioritized academics and learning and studying, and I thought I was going to get a JD, MD, and write public policy for hospitals where science and ethics collide. But then I spent my junior year abroad and mostly studied beer and boys, so I got behind in my pre-med credits. So my first sort of realization was I have just spent a year studying Augustan to Romantic literature in the Highlands of Scotland. I have no skills, no network, and no experience whatsoever.
Very
and I
specific topic.
I have like 1 year left of college to figure out how to get a job. Applied at Leo Burnett, had a job January of my senior year. But after 5 years at Leo Burnett, I ended up scoring an interview with Jellyvision. The person who hired me was actually grooming me to be her successor. I take over the business and I see a P&L of a company going off a cliff, which was really funny because it's the first P&L I ever saw, but I was like, expenses, revenue. I think that's bad. I think this is like a problem. And we went on and we found our way through. And one day it's my birthday and Harry's like, I'd like to take you to lunch. It's a beautiful September day. We get out of the cab and he's like, I have a gift for you. And I'm like, this day keeps getting weirder. You're not a gifty guy. I don't think he's ever given me a gift, but he reaches into his messenger bag and he pulls out a gift bag and hands it to me. And I'm like, oh, it's heavy. I go, oh no. So you're giving me a brick. And the brick is going to be a metaphor. And it's gonna have to live on my desk for all days because you're like, it's representative of like, this brick around jelly. We're building something real. And I go to unwrap it, and it's not a brick, it's a box of business cards that says Amanda Lannert, CEO. So this like really great moment of getting to be CEO and the ultimate leader of a business I deeply loved, I was utterly unprepared for. It bothered me that it didn't occur to me I could be CEO. One of the things I always try to tell young people is if I could go back and talk to little me, I would say, have more audacious dreams. And so my observation is just because you have big intent doesn't mean you're gonna change the world, but it certainly helps if you do. And so it was accidental, it wasn't intentional, but being given these amazing opportunities, I certainly am willing to work my butt off to make it worth the trust I've been given by our founder, Harry, by board, by employees who choose to give us the vast majority of their waking hours.
You don't seem like the typical CEO, if it's okay for me to say.
I started on the script and then I can't help but being me. And here's the reality of it all. I take the business very, very seriously. I do not take myself seriously at all. The most forgotten fact in business is that we're all human. Companies don't buy from companies, people buy from people. Companies don't innovate, people innovate, and nobody wants to be bored. We use joy or humor or being interesting, never boring, as the spoonful of sugar to make the medicine go down so you can go save $3,000 on your family's health insurance.
You gotta show the buffalo here.
The buffalo, what is this? This is actually a projection screen. So an art director named Mike at Jellyvision just built this so that while we're not projecting, we would have something cool to look at. But like, why be a boring projection screen when you can have original art done by artists of Jellyvision? The way we do things is actually the big thing, not what we do. And so it's like the way we project, the way we run meetings, the way we think about our people, when we're at our best. It's not always the case, but when we're at our best, it's never boring.
What type of CEO do you want in your life? That's something that you've said in the past, and I'm interested in your answer. What CEO are you wanting?
I don't like being told what to do. My ideal CEO would be like, here's what I think success is gonna look like. And let me give you some patterns, some stories, some ideas to think about along the way, and then come back to me when you're ready to like tell me how you're gonna get it done. I would also say someone who is deeply full of integrity. I had a moment many, many years ago. We were poor. We were trying to make it happen. We did not have any money. And I got a meeting with a very, very large company. And I just had this feeling that the individual I was trying to do business with was gonna ask me for a kickback. And I came back and I say, we spent all this money on travel because we were poor at the time. We were a very early stage startup. And I was like, yeah, I just got this vibe. And Harry's like, walk. And he said, you can do a bad deal with good people. You cannot do a good deal with bad people. So I will work with people who will be wrong. I will work with people who are audacious. I won't work with people who are bad. Like I'm like, life's too short. You can't manifest good things if people think cutting corners is the key to growth.
What responsibility do you think CEOs have to their organization and the people who follow it?
So I think there are two main jobs of a company at scale. One is you take care of the people so they can take care of everything else. And the second thing is you make sure you don't run out of money. But it's like Jellyvision is just a business that was, is, and always will be only as good as the people that we have. People out here are like, culture comes from the top. It does not at scale. Culture is being evolved by people in rooms. I haven't even met them yet. And they're Jellyvision's culture now. They're the behavior of how we get stuff done. And so being protective about who we let in and being fast about resolving problems and who we let out, and then feeding and watering and appreciating people, it's like it's the lifeblood of businesses. Maybe not manufacturing, or maybe not companies that have like some superior algorithm, but like for ours where we touch customers and make new product all the time, it's only everything.
Can we go check out the basement?
The basement isn't a basement. The basement is a band room, because one of the coolest things about Jellyvision and one of the best outlets of creativity and builders of culture in our post-pandemic, largely remote world is the fact that we have a band. And the band is so good now. And they do have gigs, like they're playing for the second time in a row. They have been invited back to headline 1871's Momentum Awards. And I've heard that they're like about to be hired by other tech companies, which I couldn't be happier for them.
It seems like it's a very inviting environment to be yourself and be creative and problem solve. And I think those are all really positive, good things that most workplaces do not have. What advice would you give to CEOs or leaders who are a little more apprehensive about change? Because it seems like you're very comfortable with change.
The world is full of change. There is no more stability. UPS laid people off. Like there's no stability, it's a myth. So you might as well do what you love with people you like and respect. Like, just to be perfectly honest about it, people are like, oh, you pivoted, that's awesome. No. You pivot because you're facing death. You're facing
survival,
existential crisis. It's not like, you know what? Everything is going exactly to plan, but I'm going to change it anyway. It's like, you want to be better. And I just have reached the point in my career where like I will say out loud and mean it with my whole heart, there is nothing at Jellyvision that can't be improved. There is nothing about me that can't be improved. So where do we want to get started?
In your experience as CEO, what's a story of a mistake you've made?
I've made so many. Who makes more mistakes more publicly than I do as CEO? But I had a really good moment speaking about integrity where there was a contract with a state, and state contracts are for a lot of money and they last forever. So it's like millions of dollars on the line. There was a specific clause in the contract that said any subcontractor you bring in will be attest to being HIPAA compliant. And I remember thinking, we use Amazon Web Services, like everyone else on the planet just about, and Amazon will not attest to being HIPAA compliant. And so 3 lawyers marched in and they're like, what do we do, boss? It's insta breach and they won't move. They say everybody signs this contract, and you know everybody can't sign this contract. And I get it. It's red tape. They don't really mean it. Every way that is material to this contract, we do, but we can't like assign this obligation onto Amazon's Web Services. So I go, you know what? Anytime we have a real material exception, I have to call a board and just the board member and say like, let's run through and just make sure you're cool with it. So I call, and his first question was, what is the limitation of liability? And I go, stop. I'm Greg, I'm so sorry I called you. I'm so sorry I called you. I gotta let you go. Thank you, hung up the phone. What he had asked is, so you're gonna do wrong, how bad it is if you do wrong? I said, we don't do wrong. We don't do business by figuring out what the consequences might be if we get caught doing wrong. We can't sign this agreement. We don't put our signature to insta breach. We don't do it. And the middle counsel, Keaton, was so relieved that she went and did a bunch of research, like, why is this here when nobody can agree to it? And she came up with one line that they could agree to that in fact made our deployment null and void, and in fact made it something we could sign, and it was a win-win-win, and it ended up being a very good story. But I like talk about it as like, we all make mistakes, we gotta go slow and hold each other accountable. We do not do business by asking how bad are the consequences for us being wrong.
What's your proudest career achievement?
It's Jellyvision itself. It's the culture that we're able to attract and retain the people that we are, the intentionality of why people do what they do at Jellyvision. There's not going to be a moment, like any moment I've ever said, it's like you pass it and you're like, it's just more mountains. So it's more like the ethos of what is. that will be my pride and joy. And it's like, I think, like I've realized in life, like my kids are gonna be greater than I ever could be, and I am really proud of that. I think we're building a generation of leaders that are gonna go on and do great things, and like the greatest isn't me, but in others who have come through Jellyvision and learned things about how to think about business or people, and then go on and do great things, and I'm totally fine with that too.
How important is authenticity in leadership?
DEI has gotten a bad name, right? We're like villainizing it. I'm like, but the idea is people show up differently and feel different levels of safety and therefore have different abilities to be successful. Maybe the great CEOs aren't like, here's who I am. Really, I don't think CEOs are that important. I think that's something like CEOs say to try to feel good about themselves. Maybe the value of authenticity is that every worker can bring their unique perspective. We have 8 million people with access to our platform now. They're different. We need different perspectives and different points of view and things like that. And it's like, we need all these different workers all over the country to be like, this is where you're failing, or this is my cultural experience that may be different, and it may represent the cultural experience of 1 million of your users. Like, maybe it's just being real enough so that everyone else feels permission to be real themselves.
I love that. And I want you to expand on CEOs not being that important. I'm interested in that comment.
I really think that I am a factor in my direct reports' lives 10 to 20% of their week. Very rarely am I like in your world. Managers are more important. Who you report to, who like decides your value, who gives you your raises and stuff, like, isn't that more important than like CEO?
One can make that argument, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's all I'm saying. It's like when I think about when you are describing your day-to-day life at Jellyvision, for very few people does my name come into play, as it should be.
What song are you listening to right now?
I'm listening to Scott Galloway's podcast. I've now listened to podcasts old. Like I just became that person. I'm a reader, but what's on Spotify right now is Scott Galloway's Prof G.
If you could travel anywhere that you have not been to right now, where would you go?
Somewhere in Asia, probably the Philippines.
Okay. What is your last meal on earth?
I just was talking about this with my kids. And I was like, my mom's homemade chocolate pie, and then tapas of like just like various types of cheese and butter, because if I'm really honest, what's really my favorite food? It's butter. Like,
yeah, love
butter is everything, it is life. And so I just like have multiple ways to eat cheese and butter, and then my mom's chocolate pie.
What is your last day on earth? How are you spending it?
Recklessly. Today's the last day. I'm gonna get my kids, I'm gonna say I love you, and then I'm gonna base jump. Because if you're gonna go, you might as well go spectacular.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you might as well
and
go
if you die, who
after
cares?
a 4-minute free fall.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? I don't wanna go peacefully in my bed. I wanna be like, I just experienced a 2-minute free fall. I love you kids, love you, and at least
and
it's like badass.
And if an accident happened, you'd be like, well, she only had 24
hours left. But if you know it's your
left.
last day, if you're like, TikTok is going down, I would spend all my time with my family and my kids, and then I would do something as rad as I possibly could.
Yeah. What's the best advice you've received as a leader?
Find someone who loves you and will tell you the truth.
When's the last time you were afraid?
Before this interview, I'm constantly afraid. But like for some reason, I've developed this DNA of like knowing I won't die and being able to like motor through it anyway. Like the way I rationalize it, which is discomfort is where the growth happens. That someone said that, and it became very like galvanizing for me to be okay with being afraid, because I'm like, oh, I might be growing.
Tell me about your best friend. Tell me
My
about her.
sister named Shelly. I call her Smelly. She is an incredible executive. She is an incredibly thoughtful thinker, and she's the funniest person I know. We can go back and forth between like sending each other TikToks as our love language, talking about what we're gonna eat today, planning our next vacation, what book should you read, and she's like a girl's girl. And she like helps me like know what to wear. She went with my mom, I was with my dad. I'm like, somehow I missed like a lot of the girls' cars, and she's like, you need a CEO jacket.
You're crushing it, you're crushing it.
Dressed by my sister.
You're crushing it.
And she's just the best, and she's down for any trip. I'm like, do you want to go to, she's already like, what airline are you on, so I can meet flights. She's really, really fun.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Amanda.
Pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
It was so
Thanks
fun
for coming
talking with
here.
you. Amanda Lannert.
It's as long as you want. Something just fell off the roof, which feels so Jellyvision.
Colton got
okay,
a little,
okay.
yeah.
I was like, did literally
Colton
something
got a
just
little
drop out of the
stuck,
ceiling?
yeah.
My idea was that instead of doing the handshake, which you always do, we do one of those like 17-step things, but like don't smile, don't break character. Yes.
Oh, there seems to be background there. But.
Shut up! Just kidding!
I'm doing a piece about me.
Sorry. I'm talking about my
This is
feelings.
about me.